Hey all, here is a replay version of the most recent live stream Q&A on all things Social Security that occurs every Wednesday at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So this is with all the little silences carved out of it. So I hope it's an easier listen for those who are doing the replay versus being there live. And we'd love to see you live, so feel free to pop in. Bye-bye now. Sean Bailey is 54 years old. And Sean, just to refresh you, what I was just talking about, guys, was in the Postal Service for 27 years, had the injury, and I'm so sorry for that, in 2024. You're still in that lowest level of grid assistance between 50 and 55. I'd like to see people win before they're 55 because I hate to see the old push always to, well, we think you can do light work. Your big goal, you have to be able to, unless you're going to win on a listing, by and large, you're going to grid out, Sean, you're going to have to show that you cannot do light work. You can't be on your feet for 6 to 8 hours, and or you can't lift more than 10 pounds. So that's something to look at. So it's going to depend. That's going to depend. That's why I'm always pushing my people when they're doing more systemic problems, like, well, I have diabetes and I have a gastro, this and that. I'm always pushing on the biggest snag. I know them really bad. Let's go with those musculoskeletal things that are not the thing that really disturbs you the most, because they're the things that are they're the only things that are gonna get that potential medium level work that's 20 to 50 pounds being able to lift occasionally, knock it down to light or sedentary. And depending on the person's age, is how far we need to knock that down. And you're not going to do that generally with systemic issues. It's going to be specific musculoskeletal, the joints, the back, the shoulders, the knees, the ankles, the hips, and everything. That's to meet the one prong. That doesn't mean you win your case. Then we use the other impairments to carve out, potentially other things. CG says no initial. Where do we leave off, CG? Oh, denied on initial. Yeah. You know what? Just appeal. You will soon be over 50. And if you've gotten your grid criteria met, big if, because it's still pretty arduous to show that you cannot do more than sedentary work, then, you do have it a little bit easier come December. And again, if they're ever going to do that borderline age, potentially before December. I just made a third cup of coffee. That's because I have a late night tonight, right? Hanging out with my friend Jonathan. For Lent, which I've never really done anything seriously for Lent my whole life, I eliminated sweetener from my coffee. That's pretty big, don't you think? Once I drink coffee. So this is full cream, a little bit, like a teaspoon, in regular coffee. And someone taught me that if you put a pinch of baking soda in it, it eliminates a lot of the acidity too. So I do that too. But yeah, I'm getting used to it. I'm like, 40 days of that, and I probably never have to go back to sugar. It's not like dessert anymore, granted, but I don't really need to have dessert. I should be more picky about my desserts. But I figure, well, that's a lot of sugar I'm eliminating from my daily diet, just by eliminating it from my coffee. I was using honey. Back in the day, I used to use all the artificial stuff. Horrible, right? Hey, My Cross Ministries in the house. Hey there. Hey there. And in the end, My Cross is saying hello to everyone in the chat. So CG is saying, has to appeal, but need to request my file RFC to see what it was. That's true. So I hope you already requested that with a 38. And then follow up. I would follow up, maybe wait a week and then keep following up and be a little bit of a sweet nag to them. Just say, I really need it. And it's program purposes. I need to know to appeal, how I'm going to appeal, what I'm appealing. What am I appealing? What did they find that I know is completely wrong? Because clearly it's completely wrong. Pardon me, guys. Yeah, CG's pointing out that he's 49 right he or she is 49 right now. Got denied an initial. 8 months or so will be 50. And yes, the grids will start to apply. But there are a lot of 50 to 54-year-olds that still get denied. So you have a lot of work to do. So get it done. Use this time to really go to town on the type of medical treatment that will best help your case. And that's where it's very case specific. The generalities, and I get a lot of argument. I get pushback from clients sometimes like, but that's not my big problem. I'm like, I know, but that's the one that's going to help you win your case. It's not to stop the other treatment. It's just that you have to add this on. The treatment load got a little bit more. And or the follow-up or diagnostics. Twill's in the house. Hey, Twill. Watching from Mississippi. Hi, Miss Stephanie. Good evening, everyone. Good evening. You mean good afternoon, right, Twill? My goodness. Not evening yet. That'd be close. Unless you're abroad. Cannon says, pre-existing. Okay. So the blindness is pre-existing, but you were able to do that other job. I have to assume there's not many jobs that you would be able to do with that vision. Your vision, right? Oh, wait. I'm mixing you up with someone else, aren't I? No, I'm not. Okay. So you're already qualified for both SSI and SSDI. You said so you won, or you didn't win. Because what race is there to finish? I'm confused, Cannon. Totally confused. Okay, 3D says, in explanation, I appealed the ALJ decision on my own. Well, good for you, because the Appeals Council appeal is the easiest one you can do. Easiest. Because you don't have to add doctor, you don't have to add anything. You just appeal it. Yes, I want to appeal. You don't even have to put a narrative. And fortunately, the Appeals Council granted a review, which is awesome, and vacated the decision. Unfortunately, no one will take my claim even with the remand. Why is that, 3D? Why is that? Are you young? Did you tell me how old you were? Let's see, my mind is like a sieve, guys. Can't keep everybody's demographics in I don't think you even told me, did you? It could be because of your age. Well, first of all, they filed a fee petition. Maybe they can. I was going to say, you don't file a fee petition until the person has prevailed, because there is no fee to be had unless you prevail. I find that kind of cheesy to file a fee petition on a case that hasn't won. It just, I don't know. And I will say, sometimes they don't, if you withdraw from a case, or, somehow you all part company, and it's true that I might not get wind of the fact that a case I worked on won, and I had a lot of participation in that. So I might not even get to do a fee petition. Could definitely happen, I think. They're so rare. I know the last one, which was probably like 3 or 4 years ago, I did get notice, and I sent in a fee petition, and I got paid. It's great. So I don't mean to make light of it, but it's like, it's hard to get a new lawyer when you have a withdrawn, or you terminated, or they terminated relationship with the prior one, because unless they waive fee, they're going to want part of the fee, and then the new lawyer, who might be doing a ton of work, particularly if they're getting it all ready for hearing, will definitely not get paid for every hour worked. I mean, they generally don't to begin with. So imagine that. So it is hard. It is hard to, I think a practice, if they're going to be an ongoing concern and worry about finances and keeping the lights on, they have to, that's one of our waitlisted areas is, it's always, well, I should say it's always full. Not always waitlisted. I always say the word waitlisted, guys, because it's technically true. However, I'm always saying, but you can't wait. So you got to go, you need to keep looking. Don't wait for us, even though, you know what I mean? So yeah, it's a tough one. So sometimes when I see those, I'm always trying to find another avenue, because we have different categories. We have veterans, like there's other reasons why sometimes someone might be prioritized when it's a wait list. So, and I know that can be frustrating, probably to those that don't have that kind of special thing about their, case, but it's just something that we do. So let's see. Jeffrey Taylor's in the house. Hi, Jeffrey. Howdy from South Texas. Tiger Bite's in the house. Tiger Bite. Nice to see you. Is that Troy Cinema? Glad to see you. Well, glad on 9+ medications I'm on. My cardiologist just added one for my heart. 49.5, awaiting ALJ hearing. Well, you might be in that borderline place. You know what I mean? Borderline age category by the time you get the hearing. That can be helpful. So Vivi's in the house and has a question. So let's go to this next question. She says, hello, good morning. Well, I said she, but it could be he. SSI recon, mental health and physical case, 20s. All right, so Vivi is young, very young. 1% are here, yeah. I have a few cues, but I'll start with one. Writing a personal statement, how detailed in explaining limitations and gaps in treatment, 5+ pages. No one's going to read it, so I don't know why you're actually writing it. That would go in your function report. And those have limited spaces for a reason. If you have seriously bad problems, trust me, you could say them in like 10 words. Don't use flowery. No one wants to read your novel. They're working, they're busy, they're overburdened with, too many cases. So you want to just drive home the main points. I do think it's helpful if you have a reason for the gaps in treatment to explain that. And I would do that in one sentence, maybe in the remarks on the last page of the function report. Yeah, I'm not kidding when I say I wouldn't be writing that whole long thing. And the judge isn't going to, well, technically he has to review everything, but it's what you testify to. Again, it's about the medical evidence, not about you winning them over with your wonderful prose. Michael Dean's in the house. Hi, Michael. Who are we meet? He says, hello, Joy. I'm 55 and applied for both mental and physical impairments. I had 2 consultative examinations on February 28th. And yesterday, my portal said my medical decision had been pulled for FQR. Is this good? I tend to think it is. I, by and large, feel like it's more awards that get pulled than denials, although I have another interesting story that just happened recently that showed me up about that. But I always feel like it's a FQR when they're double checking to make sure that it wasn't awarded inappropriately, where you would just get it pulled from you later. So it's to make sure it's solid, that the examiner or the adjudicator was following the federal rules. Because remember, the adjudicator works for the state and is outsourced to the Fed. So they gotta understandably have to make sure that they're not mixing anything up, following the federal rules, the Social Security disability rules and regulations, etc., in terms of coming to a decision. So I don't get concerned when it's an FQR. And on the part that showed me something new a few weeks ago, had a denial on a young person's case. Vivi, I had a young person's case, and it was a denial, not unexpected because it was a young person. Before I even got the appeal out, he got a letter saying, we found you disabled. Somehow there was a review, and they flipped that denial into an award. It was an SSI only case. So that was kind of thrilling. I never even had to take the time to do the appeal. That was good. So that, and I assume it was an FQR. Stop barking. Vivi says, mental health and physical issue going on 4+ years. I'm sorry. It's you have a big mountain to climb. I'm sure you're aware. It's hard to reach that. Can't do any of those 12,000 jobs. The simplest, the easiest, the less stress, the no stress ones. Supposedly no stress. Screaming Eagle says, would first time at 59 years old tell me it was highly unlikely I would get approved. Why? I asked him why. Oh, someone told you that. I asked him why, and he said most people just don't. I then said my evidence is very strong, and he said, what? I don't know who you're talking about, but that's pretty funny. Well, it's true that I will say this, Screaming. Everyone says their evidence is very strong. And I'm like, oh, okay. They don't know what strong relative to what? The high bar of Social Security disability or the low bar of getting your mom to make your cookies because she feels bad for you. You know what I mean? Like, it's how high is the bar for what's considered good. It depends on what the bar is, right? So it is a high bar. But at 59, you've got the benefits of the different rules in your favor. So I think there are people that are denied that aren't in their late 50s, even though they have strong evidence, because it's not quite strong enough to check off every checkbox with definitiveness that all jobs would be out, even a sit-down easy job would be gone to them. But by the time they get to hearing, particularly if they're properly advised, they can kind of get the evidence to fill in those gaps. We always watching is in the house. Nice to see you. We always. This is the next question. My DAC, that would be disabled adult child, for anyone who doesn't know the acronym, was denied for technical, but my SSI is still in step 4, non-medical review for 2 weeks now. What can this mean? Well, what do you mean by your DAC was denied for technical? I don't think it's for technical, but you'd have to explain why. Generally, it would be denied because you did not medically prove that you were disabled since before age 22 without interruption, without legal interruption of that disabled potential status going back to 22. So that is a medical thing. If what you mean by technical is, well, my medical condition never changed from 22 to the present, but I did work and make SGA for 2 years during that time. Even though I was part-time, I was making SGA. That would boot it out. So I understand if that's what you mean by technical, then technically that is technical in a way, because yes, it's saying you weren't disabled for those years, but it's not saying you weren't severely impaired. You just were not severely impaired enough not to make SGA. And the reason why the SSA can still keep going is because the SSI doesn't care about what you did 2 years ago. If you were working SGA, that doesn't defeat SSI. It's what you're doing now. You follow? So that's why SSI is very easy in that regard. You can apply for it forever. You just got to be poor. Whereas the other ones have, like SSD, you have to have insured status. Your DLI cannot be in the past. Or if it is, you can only prove that you were disabled then on that old existing evidence, not on all the great evidence you're getting now. And of course, DAC has that. It better have continued, including the lack of earnings since you were 22. Report. So I hope that maybe opens up some eyes to some of the questions there. We always. Mark Benson's in the house. Hello, Mark. Mark says, next question. I had my ALJ hearing a few weeks ago. I have been checking my direct deposit information on the Social Security website for about a week, and it says in red lettering, we cannot allow you access. Yeah, okay. I think it might be you guys could tell me. When you have a claim pending, you can't change your direct deposit information. Can't enter your banking information. You guys can let me know if that's so or not. And does it even allow you to put in banking information if you do not have a pending claim at all? You know what I'm saying? Might not. I know you can change your banking information after you've won and you're a beneficiary, but what about beforehand? I'm assuming they don't want to have your banking information if you don't even have a pending claim. And then they put it in the beginning. And then maybe they don't let you fudge with it until the whole, yeah. So you got to wait for your decision. I know it's hard to wait for that judge decision, right? Sherry Romero's in the house. Sherry says, so here's the next question. I was here last week. I have prescriptions for shower chair, cane, rollator, TENS unit, cane, a shower chair, a cane, a rollator, a TENS unit. I have MDD with psychotic features. So that would be major depressive disorder with psychotic features, which almost makes me think like schizophrenia or something. I have support letters from my psychiatrist and PCP. Do you think a good chance? Well, it sounds like you have physical and mental, very severe. If you're treating vigorously for the MDD with psychotic features, if you're on antipsychotic medications, if you're still having, whatever makes it psychotic, is it hallucinations? There are still ongoing. Are they having to change their meds a lot because it's not fully conquered yet by meds? So that would still, if it was, maybe you could do unskilled work, but you have some significant physical assistive devices there, Sherry, which suggests to me that you have got a lot of issues with standing safely, ambulation, that kind of thing. So the rest of the questioning would come down to your vocational profile. So, because it sounds like you have significant physical stuff that would maybe reduce you to a sedentary sit-down job, but depending on your age, you have to prove you can't do a sedentary sit-down job. So that's why that whole vocational profile details becomes important, including your age, most importantly. Age and the most recent job, if any. Tony P's in the house. Hi, Tony. Tony says he's sharing that on top of my physical and mental, I now have mild cognitive disorder. That would be a mental. I'm already approved. Will they be nicer on my CDR? Not so picky. CDR is nicer, I think, because the burden is more on them than on you. Treat for the mild cognitive disorder. Keep following up with it. Maybe get tests to show. It really depends on what you're, again, you might have already, because you already had the mental in there, you might have already established that you can do no more than unskilled work. And if that's the case, additional mild cognitive disorder isn't going to really change that. You've already gotten the best outcome you can get with that, by and large. So showing that it continues and is not improved, which if you have a new diagnosis, it probably would help with that. And keep it on top of your physical, because that's going to be very, very important. Very, very, very important. Michael Dean says, a little share. I'd like to remind people that it is very likely that you qualify for Medicaid if you live in an expansion state. I had no idea I was eligible and got approved for it today. Yeah, most poor people, no matter where you are, Medicaid is for the poor. The expansion included things like you don't have to be poor to get it in some states. So basically, some of the rich people are getting Medicaid because of that. Just saying. Sherry's 30, so you're young, Sherry. Yeah, you got a lot on your plate. But that physical stuff that you described seems very acute. So if that's chronic and not just for a few months because I was in a car accident and I have to use a walker, if it's chronic, it does seem to be strong. But will it all get you so you can't do a sedentary job? That's the question. Michael Dean says, I'm sorry, it's a little warm in here. Michael Dean says, I went over a year not knowing I could have had Medicaid coverage. I get a lot of people, Michael, who are like, I don't have it when they start with me or when they're like, we're doing intake and I'm deciding and we're talking about whether I should cover them. A lot of times I say that. Let's say it's a Monday. I'm like, I expect you to apply for Medicaid this week. Just do it. It could take a number of weeks for it to kick in. If you have wherewithal yourself, you might not win it, but then you've got to use your own money to pay for your health needs. So there's different ways to skin that cat. But yeah, I definitely think if somebody does not have insurance and they don't have a working spouse, and sometimes, with working spouses, even though they have enough money to get by, they can still get some Medicaid, like you said, in some or all of the states. And then we have some of the states that just went a little overboard, just to broke out their working people and give some wealthy people who don't work some free medical coverage. Yeah, that stinks, Michael, a whole year. I'm glad you got it now. It's really important. And it's important in a way that just for the purpose of this, you can't win your case without robust medical evidence. And if you don't have insurance, and you're not working, most of the time you can't afford to go get that robust stuff. So, and we've even had discussions, Michael, about people who are disabled from working full time, but they could do something part time. Sometimes they go and get a part-time job under SGA. We still fight their case, so they have $500 a month for which to pay for an insurance policy that will cover what they need. Just the basics, So it's like I said, many ways to skin the cat. People got to get creative and realize, sometimes you have to think outside the box. And once they learn that things are not going to be handed to them easily, to the things that they can do, that they're going to get a lot further. But if you don't know that Medicaid might be available, and I've seen that a lot. So if nothing else, at least we got them on Medicaid, you know what I mean? Or got them to apply for Medicaid.